Whatever kind of night you're having, start it off right with Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery. Whether you're mixing up a bullet bourbon old-fashioned for a cozy night in, or Kettle One Bloody Mary bar for a birthday brunch, you can get the perfect beer, wine, and spirits for any occasion delivered with Drizzly. So,
what's it gonna be?
Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com to choose your drinks today. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations.
OTR drivers, keep your business rolling and your finances traveling toward a positive financial future. Make TaxesForTruckers.com your partner to handle the money side of things. Started by the daughter of a long-haul driver, TaxesForTruckers.com understands your business and can help you pay less taxes, keep your books, and track your finances, keeping you on the road towards your financial goals. And they're local in the Midwest, but available nationwide. Get started at TaxesForTruckers.com. That's taxes, the number 4, truckers.com.
This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcast Season 4, Episode 9. It says it right there in front of me. Why can't I read it? My name is Tim Mitchell. I am in Toronto, Ontario. Joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello.
I'm also joined by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Same answer as last week.
Same thing as every week.
It's going fine in the middle of a pandemic.
The answer is good, comma, A.
Yeah, comma, A. Yeah, that's true. Yes. All right. Speaking of Moose Day, let's do some fact check, shall we? That's Mujitsu, baby. It says Eugene Cordero I was watching on the StarTrek.com site. He was talking about, that was apparently first time seen in TNG Season 2, Episode 14, the Icarus Factor, where Riker's dad shows up and hands him, whatever. So there's a Lower Decks Mugato Gumato Easter egg clip here with which they talk about some of the Easter eggy kind of things. So that's for you to follow up. And Jonathan, you got some follow-up stuff?
Yeah, just a quick one. So we talked last week about Annie Wersching, who is going to be the Borg Queen on Season 2 of Picard. And she played Leslie Dean on Runaways. We weren't sure which character she played. And I also discovered by getting into her IMDb that she also appeared in an episode of Star Trek Enterprise way back in 2002.
Ooh, wow.
In a part that I did not recognize, in an episode I did not recognize. But there she was.
What was the episode?
I cannot remember the title off the top of my head. I looked it up earlier and was just like, man, I don't remember that.
Crap, more fact check.
Yep.
All right.
Sure. Make fact check off our fact check. Good job, man.
It's very meta, as Greg would say. So let's jump into their headlines then. And you're just going to lead off into the whole Star Trek Day thing.
No,
right?
no.
Oh, by the way.
This is a team effort.
Wait. I got to say, so I ordered 3 t-shirts yesterday. One Star Trek Day one for the new Christopher Pike series, and a disco shirt. And the disco shirt arrived today.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, whoa, that was fast.
Was it like, are they storing it at those film studios down near your house or what?
I think, well, so, yeah, maybe. It came from Amazon, actually. So it did say, it was rapid delivery. But because remember, we couldn't get those for the longest time when they first came out a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
I tried to get them and I couldn't find them anywhere. And then they were at EB Games and I couldn't find them anywhere there. Yeah. So I finally got myself a disco shirt, which I never thought I would ever say in my entire life that I'm going to wear a disco shirt.
Proudly wear a disco shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because it's tongue firmly planted in cheek, right? So anyway, Star Trek Day.
Star Trek Day. So September the 8th, 2021, the second annual Star Trek Day. This was a live stream event on Paramount Plus, also on YouTube, and it was an extravaganza, a big love-in for all things Star Trek. They had panels, they had special guests, they did a red carpet, they had a live orchestra, and they had some news, which was kind of fun. The first sort of bit they got into was the Prodigy trailer. They got a first full real trailer for Star Trek Prodigy, and they also announced when it's going to be available. It's coming on October 28th, and we also know, we already knew that it was coming on Paramount Plus. We now are just 100% sure it's coming on Crave and on CTV Sci-Fi here in Canada.
Yeah.
And what did you guys think of the first trailer for Star Trek Prodigy?
So interesting. I don't know. Maybe I missed the part that Kate Mulgrew is going to play a hologram. Is that correct?
Yeah, she is basically like the EMH from Voyager. She's the emergency tactical program or emergency leadership program or something else, right? So she is basically the computer version of herself. So it's not actually Catherine Janeway. It's the holographic interpretation of her.
Yeah, I kind of wondered, like, so it sounds like they kind of find the ship and they take it over these young rapscallions, right?
Yeah.
And you know they make off with it, as it were, and she's there to coach them along the way. Do you think it's geared towards kids, or is it just meant to just has that sort of flavor in the
No,
original
it is.
trailer?
I think this is supposed to be even more so than Lower Decks, which is more like adult animation that works on a lot of levels. This one I think is more geared towards a younger audience. It's made by Nickelodeon Studios, and
Right.
I think it's one of those ones where it's. I think actually, my son mentioned today. He said, "Is it?" My impression is it's like Clone Wars, and I was like, "That's actually a really good analogy." Where I think there's going to be lots of pew pew and excitement, explosions, and danger, and you know, all that kind of stuff that you would get in a cartoon like Clone Wars. But I do think that it's sort of, you know, it's aiming at a younger audience.
Right, and the Clone Wars was on YTV when it was broadcast up here, right, or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was on the cartoon channel here.
It was on something gear. Like I think it was like
initially. Again,
TV.
I think later on
Yeah.
it was on something else, but I can't recall.
Yeah, maybe it was shown later in the day because after the younglings have gone to bed, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, again, it always sort of straddled that line between like which audience it's going for. Again, I can't imagine. And while this is a good question, and before I want to hear what Jaime has to say, but I also want to say, is this something that we're going to want to do as a weekly review podcast show? And that was a question that was asked of me earlier today, and I said I can't see a Star Trek show being on TV and us not wanting to talk about it, whether it's directly aimed at adults or not, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I did get Clone Wars vibes where Clone Wars had silly, oh, look, Jar Jar is doing hijinks, and then some pretty dark topics that certainly reach for adults. So I could see this one do the same. Oh, robot, silly, you don't know how to drive the ship, you're crashing. And then some really dark things because it starts out with, they feel like slaves or like they're not well treated on that mining junkyard kind of planet. So it feels like it's, here in America, this would, if it wasn't a Nickelodeon thing, if it wasn't Paramount Plus, probably feels like it fits with Cartoon Network, but kind of the later in the day. It's not the like super adult one. It's not the Rick and Morty after like 11 p.m. sort of Cartoon Network. It feels more like, this is like primetime one where early primetime, some of the older kids can watch it, but not the little ones who are, too young to go to school kind of thing. So that's where I feel this probably fits.
Yeah, impression I get too.
So the next thing we got after Prodigy was a look at Strange New Worlds. And Strange New Worlds, they kind of teased us, I feel, a little bit. Like, it felt like on social over the last little while, like they were really headed towards showing us a trailer. And I was kind of geared to see the first look at it. And instead of showing us a trailer for the show and what we're, giving us a sample of what we're going to see, they switched it up and gave us a trailer for who we're going to see. So They also unveiled this trailer that showed who's going to be on the cast. Obviously we knew it was going to be, Ethan Pike. It was going to be Rebecca Romijn. We sort of knew the primary cast members, but we now know that we're going to get some of these other cast members who they're actually going to play. So we found out that Celia Rose Gooding is going to play a cadet version of Uhura. We found out that Jess Bush is going to play Nurse Christine Chapel. We found out that Babs Olusumukan is going to play Dr. Mbenga, who was on the original series. And then we got a couple of new cast members. Bruce Horak is going to be playing a character named Hemmer, who is I can't even remember from Enterprise. What are they called? There was a different name. The albino versions of Andorians. There's a different name. They're like Amers or something.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't know.
Christina Chong is going to play Nan Noonien Singh, Pretty ominous name for any Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
And Melissa Navia is going to play Lieutenant Erica Ortegas. And yeah, it was this, and
now we know that number one has a name.
And we know that number one has a name. Her name is Una Chin Riley. So it's weird because I was pretty hyped after watching that video, and yet it didn't really tell us anything other than these are some characters you have to look forward to. How did you guys feel about this sort of trailer?
It almost seemed like a cell reel, like this is, sort of explaining who the characters are, as opposed to, giving us the sort of J.J. Abrams, lens flare effect sort of trailer, right? But it's interesting though. I did notice that when Rebecca Romaine was talking on the panel about working on this show, was the whole COVID-19, social distancing, got to wear your mask all the time, not able to talk to the other castmates, when you weren't in a scene. I'm sure that was pretty restrictive, and I wonder if that's also affected the production time on this show, because they kind of have to run, film it all and then run away and do all the special effects. So maybe production has been delayed because of that, and they weren't able to put together a good sizzle reel, right?
Yeah, maybe. But
I mean, yeah, you're right. I think you were the one that sort of, I'm going to blame Spotcast for this, because I was expecting a trailer of some type, right? But yeah, and I was surprised that we didn't. And as soon as I saw it, I kind of went, eh. And then the two ladies that were hosting the red carpet, they replayed it a little while later. I think while it was like, I guess a dinner break or something between the two sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as a side comment here, I've seen a lot of bands play with orchestras before, and I've never really been a big fan of going to a show where an orchestra is there, because they have that whole union rule of like 90 minutes and then they're out, But it was interesting to see that this orchestra stuck around for almost a 3-hour show, right?
3.5 hours. We'll get to that.
There was a half-hour break, I think, or something like that, right?
But there was a the show itself was like 3.5 hours between like the red carpet and then all the intros and then the orchestra and then all the panels and everything wrapping up. Yeah, 3.5 hours. Right. Crazy.
Yeah, and yeah. So, but coming back to this show, it was interesting that Anson Mount didn't really have a lot to say until they kind of gave him some real directed questions. It was mostly the guy who plays Spock and
Ethan Peck,
Ethan Peck and Rebecca Romaine and the two producers talking about it. And the really annoying thing for me was, I gotta say, I really didn't enjoy the fact that it was on Facebook video, whatever they call it, Facebook Play or whatever, because on my phone it was the video and the audio was in sync. On my iPad it was video, and so I decided to watch it on my Apple TV, and like the streams weren't at the same time. I ended up just leaving my iPad on and just muting the TV because the audio and it was off by a good 30, half a millisecond. Like it was like you'd see somebody moving and then you'd hear their voice, whatever. So it was like way out of sync. So almost impossible to watch. And because I was wondering, is it on something else? Like I'd want to watch it on YouTube or Twitter or something, but it looked like it was only on Facebook. And I wasn't sure if maybe my Apple TV was actually streaming from my phone, and that might have been the problem, right? But because there's an app on Apple TV for Facebook, but which I almost deleted a couple of weeks ago. I'm surprised I didn't. But because anything with Facebook just makes me nervous. But yeah, so that from that point of view, it was crappy to watch. But and that was unfortunately when I was watching when that panel was on, right? So that kind of took away from it. But and I don't know, the whole sort of running gag about spoilers, and they never really spoiled anything,
No.
Other than Sonic the Hedgehog, that was really
that was pretty funny,
right? Yeah. Yeah. So I mean So I didn't get, like you said, we didn't get a whole lot out of that. There was a Christopher Pike that'll come up a little later, hopefully. But yeah, that was it. So.
I think a lot of this stuff was cool. I didn't actually see the event, so I was catching up after the fact on the trailers and teasers and peeks and stuff. I can't speak to the actual event itself.
Yeah, I think you probably dodged a bit of a bullet there. Well, we'll talk about it once we wrap up this stuff. But it was a very long event. What do you guys make of having these classic characters sort of reinvigorated? A new Uhura, a new Dr. Chapel, or Nurse Chapel, I guess at this point. new Dr. Mbenga, a Nguyen Singh. What does any of this sort of tell you about where this is going?
Well, it's interesting that. Oh, so yeah, I guess this is supposed to be because the Mbenga guy Dr. Mbenga was on during the Kirk and Spock era, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious why. I mean, why would they bring? Because the guy who played the Doctor on The Cage was really an old dude, right? Was it called The Cage? Yeah, it was called The Cage originally, the pilot, right? Yeah, so I don't know why they didn't go with that, or why they're not trying to replicate a sort of DeForest Kelly character, right? Like what's his name does, the Australian actor from The Boys.
Oh yeah,
yeah, Keith Urban.
That's it.
Keith Urban.
Yep.
Carl
Urban. Yeah.
Carl Urban. Yeah, it's Keith's brother. Yeah. But they're all the same down there. They're all called Bruce.
Oh right.
But yeah, I thought it was odd that they would bring him in because I think he was only on the original series for maybe 1 or 2 episodes, right? And I always thought he was like, the second Doctor to McCoy, right?
Yeah, I think he was basically the Doctor on duty when McCoy was on an away mission. That was sort of his.
He's the lower deck Doctor.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, he was the backup Doctor. I do think that I can understand why they wouldn't want to do Dr. McCoy right off the hop, just because it is.
An iconic character.
It is. And again, I think if you have him on there, I think you're going to want to invest the time with him. And I think they already had 3 leads between, Anson Mount, Ethan Peck, and Rebecca Romaine. Plus, they're introducing these, what seem like really interesting potential side characters. It's a lot. It's a lot to add a McCoy in there. And you can always do that. If you go 4 seasons or whatever, he could always come on board in a different,
as a young intern or something.
Yeah, there's always a way to do that down the road. You don't have to sort of, go all in at once. Again, you're going to get a young Uhura. You're going to get a young, a Spock. I think there's stuff there to chew on.
Because he was in The Next Generation. Was it it was in the first season he was on?
The pilot.
Oh, he's in the pilot. Oh, yeah, the very first.
He's hanging out with Data, and he sort of says,
yeah, right.
It's a good ship. You'll be true to her, and she'll always bring you home.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Again, it's like rebuilding the Millennium Falcon. Like, is it going to really work? I mean, we've seen shots of the Enterprise bridge, right? But it's such an iconic set,
But it looks so good. Like, it looked so good in Discovery Season 2.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I loved in the panel they were talking about how the attention to detail. They were going for that mid-century modern kind of aesthetic mixed with real 21st century modern. I'm kind of curious to see more than just the bridge, to see a little more around the ship. They said they really sort of did redid the captain's quarters and the ready room, and I'm really curious to see that sort of revitalized 1960s aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. Show.
The next panel was a fun one. They brought out a few of the cast members and the creator of Lower Decks. Didn't really say much. It was a good time, but they gave a sizzle reel for sort of the second half of the season. But again, no real like, oh my goodness, oh look at that character. Like it really wasn't a lot of there, which I guess makes sense. Again, we got episode 5 of Lower Decks the next day. We only have 5 episodes left to go in the season, so makes sense that it's not going to be like the greatest thing ever. But it wasn't really much of anything.
Yeah, I mean, halfway through such a short show, it's like you gave me the rest of the season with extra steps. Might as well just released all the episodes at that point. If I'm going to see the trailer of a show that's 20 minutes times 5, 100 minutes.
You just showed me 2 minutes out of the I got great. I just got to see 4% of the.
Yeah, for sure.
They did a nice panel where they did a sort of remembering Gene Roddenberry. It was Gene Roddenberry's 100th birthday, or would have been his 100th birthday recently. And so they brought out George Takei, Gates McFadden was there, LeVar Burton, and Rod Roddenberry, his son, and had a nice little, everybody shared some memories and stuff like that. It was cute. Again, I think, I'm not sure. I mean, it's hard. It's hard. Obviously, for Star Trek Day, you want to celebrate Gene, but it was, again, it wasn't a lot of there. They moved from that into Picard season 2, and that's where
you missed Disco, though.
Oh yeah, that's true. They did do the Disco one, but again, like Disco, they did the unveiling of the sort of timeline, but we didn't get a trailer, so there wasn't a lot of there. They really just sort of said, hey, by the way, it's coming on November 18th. Be there. And in the panel, they talked about, some of the obvious stuff, like Saru's going to rejoin the crew at some point. Like, well, wow, I can't believe that's going to happen. There was not a lot of sort of news that came out of that one too. But again, realistically, we're talking about a show that's going to come out in 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Like, yeah. I guess they don't want to spoil anything at this point, and they've already put out a bit of a teaser and everything, so it is what it is. Picard season 2, they didn't
reveal too much.
Well, they didn't do a panel, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
So, we didn't get, Patrick Stewart, we didn't get, anybody sort of out there talking about it. They basically came out and sort of said, hey, here's a trailer. They showed the trailer, which showed a lot of stuff. So there's some stuff in there for us to parse.
Well, it explained a lot of some of the questions we had about, like, where is this, like,
yeah, where does the Borg Queen fit in? What's the timey-wimey thing? Why is 7 no longer 7?
Yeah.
So the big things that came out of this were they announced it's coming in February, which makes sense because it times out to come on right after Disco ends. Sorry, Jaime, you're in for the long haul on Paramount Plus.
That's okay. I mean, that's their problem, right? Give me enough content to keep me plunking down my $6 a month. I'm like, you slip up for even 1 month and I unsubscribe. Right?
Merciless.
Where will they get that $6 from?
They also announced that they are going to make a third season, which is good news. I was wondering, honestly, because it did occur to me, and I know they were playing it for the role, but there was times where Patrick Stewart seemed, like he is an 80-year-old man, like, yeah, he's not a young man to be globetrotting. And even, obviously he, I'm sure they're being cautious with him and giving him, what he needs to do his work. But it's a lot to put on a man of his age, no matter how talented he is, no matter how spry he feels, to lead a show. And so I wasn't sure if they were just going to be like, yeah, we're going to do a couple of these and then we're out. So good news that we're getting a third season. And I'm obviously excited about any adventures that involve that part of the universe and Picard and all that. But
maybe Betty White's his understudy.
If she was, I'd be nervous. As we talked about last week, she buries her co-star, so I don't think I don't think I'd want to be involved in that particular casting. So I guess once again, maybe we'll start with you, Jaime. What did you think of the Picard trailer we got? The very spoilery trailer we got.
Well, I thought it was interesting that they go back in time to roughly around now. I forget the exact year, but it was, I was like, oh man, do I need to just, every time something goes wrong in our daily lives, just turn around and say, Q? It's like, like he's the reason we have the crappiest timeline right now. It's because we're the alternate reality version of what it should be. Because that kind of seems like what they did, right? It's like, oh, they went back to, I don't know what we can find on the trailer. It was like, somewhere between like 2015 to 2027 or something is what I think it was. It's like,
yeah, maybe they said 21st century. Welcome to the 21st century. Like, oh, well, of course they're here because that's why else wouldn't they? They have to. It's a Star Trek rule.
Yeah, and it also is like a really good way for them to save money on some episodes, right? Oh, they're driving in a Buick. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I hope you take the monies from that and put it into pew 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 towards like the season finale, and then I'll be okay with that.
Yeah.
But the content seemed kind of cool where they're like, I think in the alternate timeline where the Borg Queen is like in a jar, like a pickle jar, and they're using her for something. It's not even clear if she's fully alive or just a husk or incapacitated in some way and being used for nefarious purposes.
Yeah, she does sort of open her eyes in the trailer, which makes you think perhaps she's been in stasis of some kind and is now not.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out basically Q changes it. The plot seems to play out in the trailer that Q shows up, says the trial's still going on, even though it's been, 25 years. And here's the next part of the trial, snaps his fingers, changes reality so that something changed in the past. And now the world that our crew from last season that Picard has assembled are the only ones aware that they're not where they're supposed to be, and they're in this totalitarian version of the Federation. Seems a very mirror universe kind of thing.
been done before.
And
yeah.
then they realize, okay, the only way to fix this is to go back in time, which of course it is because it's Star Trek. And they go back in time using obviously some Borg technology. We get a few scenes of them interacting in 21st century, ways. And obviously their goal is to sort of quickly race against time to try and prevent whatever it is that changes the timeline from happening in order to get Q to snap his fingers and put it back or whatever.
Yeah, I guess it's true. We don't have Christopher Reeve to fly backward around the Earth to go back in time if you use Borg technology. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it wouldn't be Star Trek if there wasn't some timey-wimey stuff mixed in there.
True.
Yeah, this is where
an alternate universe.
They get Worf to show up on the show purely because he's got the sweet gig on the Klingon High Council, and then they're like, "So we want to go back in time." He's like, "Already got you, bro. We have this old as hell bird of prey that you can take.
That's right.
Go loop around the sun a few times, and you'll be fine."
We got this old one. It still has some transparent aluminum in it. You're fine.
Yeah.
Other sort of observances from Star Trek Day. So it was a strange event. They did do it live on all these channels. I'm not sure live is the best format for this. Mika Burton and Wesley Crusher were the hosts, and Will Wheaton.
He's a little too excited about Star Trek, if you ask me.
His smile could have hurt someone. It was gleaming so brightly. They had, a whole sort of red carpet thing. They had these two young women whose names I wrote down as Naomi Kyle and Stella Chu as the sort of red carpet hosts. Mm-hmm. And they kept sort of cutting back and forth to them. I can't say I was particularly blown away by their level of...
Apparently one of them was a cosplayer. Maybe they won a contest or something.
I don't know, but they really didn't seem to know who everybody was. They didn't really seem to sort of get it. At one point, they were talking about this exhibit that they had inside, and the exhibit had some of the costumes. They're like, "Oh, it's the original Gorn costume is there, and Leonard Nimoy's original Spock tunic's going to be on display, and Khan's original and uniform from the movie, played by Ricardo Montalban." And I was like, "Oh no, oh no."
Yeah.
So yeah, I was not particularly blown away with them. The one thing I did really enjoy is at one point they were interviewing Mary Chaifo came out on the red carpet, and she literally came out on the red carpet. She was there having an interview, and she started talking about her girlfriend, and then Wilson Cruz came over and they were talking, and that was the first time she'd publicly acknowledged that she's queer. And I was like, that's really cool.
Okay.
That was a kind of a neat moment. And she said, being friends with Wilson, working with Ian and Blue, the other two, queer characters on Discovery, she said, it really sort of helped her sort of get in touch with who she is. And she came out to, I guess, her friends and her family previously. This is the first time she came out publicly. And it was kind of a nice moment, in spite of the fact that it was a weird sort of setting for it. But yeah, it was kind of beautiful. In that one moment, the four of them were standing there, and it's these trans people, and obviously gay and queer, and it's all across the rainbow, and it was kind of a beautiful moment. It's something that I think Star Trek's done a really good job of embracing, and to have that sort of moment, it was kind of hit the heartstrings. It was nice.
Sure, I didn't see that part, but and also Jerry O'Connell kind of crashed the party too, because he drove his wife to the event.
Yeah, I was holding her shoes while he did his interview on the red carpet.
Yeah, but then he ended up on the panel. Like they put up another chair and gave him a mic, and I don't think it wasn't. They played it up as if he wasn't planned.
Yeah. I thought the orchestra stuff that they did, again, obviously it made it pretty long and time consuming, but I mean, it was really kind of neat to watch a live orchestra play. They played all the theme songs for all the original, all the different series, including Lower Decks, and all the new stuff too. That was kind of a cool moment, and they were really quite amazing to watch, especially considering they're all doing it like live in the moment, and with masks on and the whole 9 yards. D. Bradley Baker is doing one of the voices on Prodigy. He's the one who does all of the clones on the Clone Wars, Bad Batch, all that stuff. This incredible voice actor. And it was kind of fun to see him like up on a stage getting kind of some recognition, because that guy's just great. And and I'm starting to have the same feeling about George Takei that I was starting to get about some of the later years of James Doohan and DeForest Kelley and that, where it was like, oh, he's starting to get a little harder, a little slower, a little harder to follow. And I love George, and I'm so glad that he's still with us. But you are starting to sort of realize, like, these guys are getting into their 80s, in some cases 90s. It's, time catches up to everyone. It was kind of one of those mortality moments where I was like, oh my gosh, George doesn't seem as young as he was. And the overall thing is just, man, by the time they got through all the red carpet, all the panels and everything else, and all kinds of, back and forth with they were reading people's tweets live and everything else. I think it was 3 hours and 37 minutes by the time they were done. I'm as big a Star Trek fan as you're going to find, but damn, that was long. For the amount of news that they actually dropped. And they were dropping the trailers live on StarTrek.com, on their social channels, pretty much as they were, within 10 minutes of them being live on the show, they were putting them up there. So I'm going to say Jaime is the winner of the night on Star Trek Day for choosing not to watch it live.
Yeah. Well, I was working on other stuff at the same time, but yeah, it was I don't know if they were trying to be fan servicey, but the service wasn't great. I gotta say, I did enjoy. I mean, I don't normally get into the theme songs of these different shows, but I thought it was interesting to hear them played live, to see how the pieces are put together and that kind of stuff as a musician, but I wouldn't have gone out of my way to see that live. Yeah. And it was interesting to see that some of the stars, but to be honest with you, like I basically, I kind of muted the TV. I was actually editing Spotcast last night. So, a lot of times I would just sort of leave it running, mute it, and then just go back to my editing. And then when somebody showed up on the stage that I wanted to listen to, I would pause the editing and go listen to it, right? Or hit replay or whatever, right? So it wasn't something you wanted to unless you're a super nerd, unless you're, Will Wheaton, you're not going to sit there and do the whole thing, right? So
yeah.
Like I said, he seemed to enjoy the whole event too much. But,
Yeah. Well, he just seemed like he was happy to be out of his house. So
I guess, yeah, that's true.
I think that was the general sentiment was, oh, thank God we're out of our houses.
Yeah. It's interesting. There was one panel where he talked to the various people, like because he was talking to the two younger actors
for Disco
about being a young actor on the show, and I think that guy what's his name who plays Harry Kim.
Oh, Garrett Wang.
Garrett Wang. He was on for a bit, and they had a bit of a chat about that whole thing. Yeah. So that was kind of interesting. Yeah. So all right, let's move on.
All right. Well, this is a follow-up story to something we talked about last week. How is Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings going to do at the box office, considering it wasn't available on Disney Plus, and the only way to see it was to get your butt to a movie theater? Well, I'm happy to announce it did really well, all things being equal. So according to the Entertainment Weekly piece I'm looking at here, said it took home a $71.4 million over the 3 days, and then a 4-day weekend estimate of $83.5 million US, which is the best movie in the last number of years. Now, as it says in this article, they, pre-pandemic, if a Marvel movie opened below 100 million, it would be a disappointment. But given the circumstances, given obviously all the different factors, that is a pretty impressive debut. And I'm happy to tell our fans that your favorite Spotcast hosts all did their part. Jaime was the one with the great idea to purchase a ticket irrespective of whether or not we intended to go, just to show our support for the cast, to the idea of having an primarily Asian led cast, and to show our support. And so Jaime led the way. He bought a ticket that he did not cash in. Tim and I followed suit, and we're glad to have put our change on the pile there to make sure that
put our money where our mouth
absolutely
is.
Put our money in there. So Jaime, kudos to you. That was a great idea and a really nice gesture, and it may never get recognized outside of this pod, but I think it was a nice thing to do, and I'm glad we did it.
So it set a Labor Day record, right? According to the article, but I noticed that Big Black Widow still holds the top spot, right?
Yep.
And that was released in both, theaters and at home, right?
Yep.
Or was it all exclusively at home?
No, it was both.
Yeah. So I still maintain that, I think they could have made a few bucks, a few more shekels if they had released it for us to watch it, Even if it was like a 2 day, if it was a 2 day, like you get it for like Wonder Woman, like for 2 days, I would have gone for that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I've been trying to think about how I feel about whether or not I will.
I do know some people who went and saw it in the theater, though. I do know some that did that. Right?
Yeah, and as do I. I know some people who were just like, yeah, I'm going. Okay, that's your choice, and if that's how you want to go at it, no problem. So here in Ontario, where Tim and I live, the rules are right now that there are there's no need to show a proof of vaccination. There's no need to show proof of a COVID test or anything else to go to a cinema here in Ontario right now. As of the 22nd of September, there will be a rule in place for cinemas across the province saying that if you wish to attend a movie, you have to show proof of vaccination in order to get in. And I think at that point, I might make the effort. I think maybe we can round up the gang and feel a little more secure. I still, obviously there's still going to be social distancing in theaters. Obviously there's going to be some, precautions in place. I'm not sure whether or not, obviously depending on the capacity and how things are staged, whether or not I'll take off my mask and dig into a bag full of popcorn. But I feel like once at least there's that a little bit more of a safety net, I might feel like I'm ready to go see a movie in a theater again.
Well, we did go see a movie in theater in Woodstock when we were there, but and I did survive an airplane flight, where they served us crackers and a soda pop or something like that.
Well, and my wife made the point, and she's I think she's probably, well, no, she's more brave than I am. So she's been working in a hospital for this entire pandemic. That's what she does for a living. She works in hospital administration. And when we talked about Shang-Chi, she actually said, "Oh, I'd like to see that movie," and I almost fell off my chair. And because my wife is in spite of being married to me, not necessarily a fan of the Marvel movies, this genre, science fiction, that stuff. She's certainly seen some of it and has enjoyed some of it, but she's not what you call a rabid fan. But she was a huge fan of Kim's Convenience and really liked Simu Liu and thought, yeah, I'd like to see that. She said, I saw the trailer. I liked the sort of, magical sort of feel of it. And I like him and I like Awkwafina. And yeah, I would go see that movie with you. And I was like, even like right now, she's like, dude, I go into a hospital every day. Do you think I'm afraid of a cinema? I was like, okay, fair point. Fair point. You're way, way tougher than I am. I've been living my little sheltered life here in my little home office, working away for the company I work for.
I always think a hospital's a cleaner. I know hospitals are like rampant. Before COVID, they were like staph infections and all kinds of other stuff. But I would think that a hospital is a safer environment to go into during a pandemic than a cinema is.
Well, even the hospitals here in Ontario, there haven't been vaccine mandates. There are some coming into place now, but she could be working next to people who are not vaccinated just as easily as anyone else working in a work environment right now. So there's no guarantees. She's been vaccinated since I think January. She started getting her vaccines because she was obviously working within the hospital. But yeah, I mean, there's no guarantees that the people around you are making smart choices and taking care of themselves the way that you'd hope they would. But yeah, it's I was surprised that you wanted to go. And then, when I sort of said, I think I might wait until after I feel like it's a little safer. And it was basically her very polite way of saying, stop being a wimp, So yeah. So I was like, okay, fine, fair point. All right. So I think by the time we get to that point where they've sort of cleared the hurdle of you have to be vaccinated to go see a movie, I feel like, maybe I'll be ready to go back and see movies by then.
Yeah. I was tempted for a moment, but then
Well, we got 2 more weeks. We'll go see. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see where we are 2 weeks from now. That's the problem with COVID land. Everything changes so fast.
Well, we're in wave 4 now, and God knows what wave. I mean, it's like the epicenter of COVID in North America, as we know.
That's right. So, that's right.
Yeah, all right, his house. All coming out of his house. Yeah.
Moving on to quickly to more quasi Marvel movie news. Sony has decided to capitalize on the fact that, and this is something else we talked about, well, maybe we're going to start seeing things change depending on how Shang-Chi performs, if there's an appetite for people to go to the movie theaters. And like the day after it had a good weekend, Sony decided that they're going to move up the new Venom movie, Venom Let There Be Carnage. It was supposed to come out on the 15th of October. Now it's coming out on October 1st. So that's the first sort of domino to fall as far as, getting things moving and maybe they're thinking there's a window for us if we can get there before, what some people are anticipating to be a fourth wave that will hit in the fall when more people are returning to their offices, more people are returning to schools.
We're in the fourth wave.
We are in the fourth wave. We're now at the beginnings of it.
Oh, I see. Okay. And I haven't seen the first Tom Hardy movie, but this is Tom Hardy again, I guess, right?
It is. And the first one was fine. I watched it, I think, I want to say Netflix or Crave or something like that here in Canada. It was perfectly enjoyable. It wasn't, it wasn't very complicated. It was certainly, but I like Tom Hardy. I think he's a fun actor. I think he's got my attention for an entire movie. It was perfectly fine. I'm a little more curious about this one because in the first one, Riz Ahmed played the bad guy in the first one, and he was fine, but it was just a little flat. Like Venom's got some decent bad guys, and he was not the best of them. This one, having Carnage be the bad guy and Woody Harrelson playing Carnage, potentially could be a lot more fun. So I'm curious about this one. I'm not convinced I'll go see it in the theater because I just don't feel invested in the Sony Marvel verse. But I'll probably watch it as soon as it comes to a streaming platform for whatever I pay monthly.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Venom comes out of Spider-Man verse, right?
Yeah, that's part of the sort of last non-Marvel owned Marvel property is the sort of Spider-Man verse. So they have the rights to Spider-Man and they have the rights to sort of all these other characters that are connected. And so, Venom is sort of this dark alien version of Spider-Man that is, based around this sort of symbiote that merges with a human being and creates this sort of super...
Topher Grace fault, right? If I remember correctly.
Topher Grace played him in Spider-Man 3. That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Last thing I've got right here is The Matrix Resurrection dropped the trailer. Resurrection's trailer dropped Thursday morning. Have you gentlemen seen the trailer?
We have.
All right, Jaime, what do you think?
I think it leads to a hypothesis that maybe John Wick takes place in the Matrix. just given the way that Keanu Reeves looks here, and it seems to mostly take place in normal world throughout most of the trailer, with the beautiful rendition of Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit in the background, keeping on theme with the Wonderland theme from the original Matrix. The trailer really slaps, as the kiddos say nowadays. It's got me excited for December 22nd, especially because it's on HBO Max. So I'm basically gonna be able to see it.
I feel like you've got a cheat code. You're always joking about our socialized science fiction here in Canada, but that HBO Max with the movies thing is such a huge bonus this year for American viewers.
All it takes is $19.99 a month. or $14.99 a month at best.
And a VPN connection, yeah, exactly. An American credit card,
yeah.
Small hurdle for us.
Yeah.
Well, there must be some way it's coming to Canada. Like I said, home box.
It sure is. It's coming to theaters. Enjoy.
Oh, but it's not coming to.
Well, so far, Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I saw IMAX. Right, I saw IMAX in the trailer. IMAX and HBO Max.
No, HBO Max is just the HBO streaming platform.
No, but I saw on the one I watched earlier today. It said at the end it said IMAX and HBO Max, right? So
yeah,
I watched the official trailer on YouTube today.
Yeah, I think this one is going to be in theaters here in Canada in the same way that Suicide Squad was exclusively to theaters. Obviously, the pandemic notwithstanding, who knows where we're going to be by the December 22nd. Wonder Woman was on HBO Max in the United States for people who had that service. Here, it was available as a download. You could watch it for $35 or whatever it was. And even that, it wasn't like the sort of Disney Plus Premier Access where you got it ad infinitum. You got it for, I think, 48 hours or something like that. You got it for $35. Who knows? Maybe, again, by December, we'll all feel safer about being in a movie theater. I hope so, because it seems like a really good... Lana Wachowski and Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss and what looks to be a young Morpheus.
Yes, true. Yeah.
The trailer, I'm with Jaime. I got hyped. I was like, I didn't know I wanted this till I saw this.
And they actually walk through the looking glass in the trailer, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
No, it looks good. It's that trope of, I just actually watched an episode of Voy yesterday that had Janeway and Chakotay replaying a scene in a shuttlecraft over and over again, and it sort of had that sort of feel to it in part of the trailer, you know.
Yep.
You know, where they Carrie-Anne Moss and Keanu Reeves meet each other and like, do I know you?
Yeah.
And there's lots of blue pills and all that kind of stuff. And actually, there's that interactive thing that was going around earlier in the week where you get to choose a pill in the interactive ad and then decide, and it goes one way or the other depending on which pill you choose. Right? So
yeah, whatisthematrix.com is back online.
Oh yeah, cool. That's funny, you know, because I used to go to movies all the time with my friend Ken, and somebody handed us a card as we were coming out of a movie. I think I was going into like, you know, a record store or something like that after a movie on a Friday night, and somebody handed us this card for a preview, and we looked at it and went, it looks okay. And we went in and had our minds blown, right?
Yeah, I think there was a really good, was one of the first real sort of internet viral marketing campaigns to get The Matrix out.
That was the reason why I bought a DVD and a subwoofer.
Oh, yeah.
To watch that movie.
But even like before the movie came out, there was, you know, you just see these posters everywhere that says, what is The Matrix? And there was very much this sort of stealth campaign. It was one of the smartest and most innovative campaigns to promote a movie that I can recall before it came out. And it was one of the first ones to really leverage the internet that way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously it's built around that whole internet thing, right? It's the original story. Yeah, it was good. It was good. It was like, you know, like I said, a DVD player, because I wasn't clear about the fact that I didn't have a DVD player at the time. Most people didn't, right?
Yeah.
I think the PlayStation was one of the first entry gateway things to DVDs and Blu-rays. Cool.
Yeah.
A PS3, right?
No, PS2.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Still have mine.
Ditto.
Yeah. And Jaime, you're up, I think. Oh, look. Dune.
Yeah. Not much here other than this review from the, Venice Film Festival, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it sounded like it's pretty good. I mean, this review here sounds pretty impressed with it. So looking forward to seeing that one.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Denis Villeneuve's work.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know people didn't like Blade Runner 264 or whatever it was, 2064. But his Arrival movie was great. Like the really, really interesting one. That was a timey-wimey one too, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I have high hopes for this. And like I said, I hope they don't ruin Foundation, but it'd be interesting to see like how they do this one. Because, I mean, you know, Frank Herbert's work is like loved by a lot of people, right? And it potentially has the ability to go, because he did several stories around the whole, you know, family, right, and the whole spice and all that stuff, right? So,
well, they've already announced that the second movie is happening, and apparently it's going to be more focused on the characters Zendaya plays. So right. I think that's. Yeah, I think that they were already thinking long term as this, you know, that this was going to be a hit. It's going to be a franchise. It's going to be something they can build around.
Well, Toronto Film Festival started yesterday or today, I think.
Yeah.
Right, just September 9th today, by the way, for those who are transporting at home. And Dune is one of the opening movies. I think it's Saturday. It's playing in a couple of places.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, but we'd have to go to the theater to see it.
Just to avoid the fact check, I want to point out it's Blade Runner 2049, Tim. 2049.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for saving me that extra copy and pasting of a clip there.
Yeah. Yeah, his Blade. I thought Blade Runner was a beautiful movie. It wasn't the best story he's ever told, but it was visually breathtaking. Arrival was the same thing. I don't know that I loved every bit of the plot, but it was a beautiful movie. The one he's done that I really, really enjoyed was Sicario. That was an incredible movie. So, like, yeah, just a really powerful movie that he made back in 2015. I really like that one a lot. Yeah, I'm to the point with him where I will pretty much want to see anything. He's in that Christopher Nolan class. I just want to see his movies on a big screen because they're going to be really, really delicious eye candy.
Yep. What's next time?
I guess this is older news because by the time people are listening to this, the Rick and Morty season finale has come and gone for season 5. But there was a promo for Adult Swim that had live action versions of the characters with Christopher Lloyd playing Rick and Jaden Martell playing Morty. And that was it was very short. It was only like a 10-15 second clip. It got people hyped. It slaps.
So can we talk about the hour-long finale for a minute? Did you watch it?
Yep.
Are we rolling into spoilers for Rick and Morty here? That's okay. Just setting
I think we are.
the stage.
Yeah, we'll just let the expectations go there. But yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to talk about what happened in the story, except to. I mean, I love the whole 35-year-old Morty angle that they played. That really had me going for a minute. But the like, it's almost like it ended. You know, like the way, like, because it kind of lent to that whole sort of trope of how a lot of sci-fi stories of this type end. You know, with them having a falling out, and then the sort of the very end piece there where Morty almost goes off into the sunset on his own, kind of thing. What did you guys think of it?
Yeah, I thought it was. I liked it because you had the sort of Crows saga. And the anime intro kind of thing going for it. That was great. And then they definitely break the fourth wall and say, we can't go to that place. It runs on canon. And then sort of giving you, the audience, the hint that this is going to be one of those canon episodes that isn't a one-off adventure. It's going to, move the overall story arc along. And it definitely does. It definitely does. And spoilers, one of my picks, or I think my pick is actually related to the finale. We'll talk about it when appropriate, but I enjoyed it. I think it retroactively made season 5 better for me because it was leading to that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. I think we talked about it like initially because I kind of like didn't have a good feeling for it until Jonathan reminded me that I really did enjoy this season, right? So
yeah, I mean the season was pretty consistently good. There were certainly some high water marks, but I find this show really interesting in that, it's definitely, they're telling these sort of weird and wacky one-off sci-fi adventures, and they make fun of themselves for doing so. But they really are sort of pulling at these really long threads through this whole thing that, they're weaving this sort of very rich emotional tapestry, particularly for the Rick character, through this whole thing. And this was sort of the most sort of obvious point of it too. I mean, we have gotten sort of glimpses at his past and just sort of his motivations and, again, why he's, this sort of crazy alcoholic, space adventurer and everything like that. This one, again, where Morty sort of sees all of Rick's story and, I found it really poignant. Like, I don't know. It certainly was, like the last part in particular, there was certainly some head scratchy stuff in there. Like I'm going to watch it a few more times, I think, to try and soak it all in. But it, I thought the way that they've been sort of telling us, burping dick jokes and stuff throughout this show has been really this sort of masquerade for this sort of really rich character exploration that they've been doing quietly and in subtle ways. And this is the first one where I felt like they sort of brought it to the forefront, and it was really kind of impactful to do that.
Yeah, you're right. It definitely requires several rewatchings to sort of get all the sort of twists and turns in it, right?
Yeah, I think like a lot of art, I think there's a lot of depth to it, and there's a lot of stuff to sort of try and parse. I must admit, I've never gone back and done a full. I've watched a season or two in bits. I've certainly watched episodes here and there. I've never gone and watched like a sort of full beginning to now rewatch of Rick and Morty, and maybe before the next season that might be time, because it really does feel like they're weaving together a lot now.
Yeah, there are a lot of there's a lot of YouTube shows that cover sort of the stuff you missed in Rick and Morty, and they go through all the sort of like almost like serializing which Morty you're dealing with. Like we all the three of us recognize that this isn't the same Morty that started the show, kind of thing. And I wonder too, like in just as you were saying that about Rick's life as he sort of flashes back through different stages of his life, is wait a minute, which Rick is that? There are many Ricks again in this one, right?
Yeah.
But the whole destroying, what do they call the central hub of Rickdom?
The Citadel.
Citadel, yeah. The fact that they trashed the Citadel in this, that's a spoiler part, folks. That kind of, for me, was sort of spelt an ending in a sense, right? Or maybe a new beginning or something, right? Because that was sort of a hub where they pull from several times in the entire series, right?
Well, and then they had laid this whole foundation too. You know, this whole thing with evil Morty had gone back 5 seasons. You know, this all of this stuff sort of, you know, all sort of culminating at this point is really interesting. I couldn't help but think, though, you know, obviously, you know, Mr. Poopy Butthole comes out at the end of the episode and sort of says, you know, hoo-wee, what a season, and, you know, boy, things are bad for me too. I think it is one of those ones where you get to the end of the season, you're just like, where do we go from here? How do they turn this back to, you know, sort of the next thing? You know, it's hard to say. You know, they've certainly taken their swerves here and there. I wonder if, you know, if they lean into this, or if they go right back to sort of Adventure of the Week stuff. They're pretty good at sort of heading you down a tunnel and then making an abrupt, 180 and going in a different direction.
Yeah, sure. Cool. All right, so I'm up next, believe it or not. This is an interesting story. There's a book by L.V. Ray Smith called The Biography of the Pixel, which is, I'm going to pick it up, or reserve it from the library. I might just go out and buy a copy of it, because as the headline of the article that I stumbled across, it says in Wired magazine, meet the little-known genius who helped make Pixar possible. And what's interesting about this is it's not just he's the guy who came up with the idea or the concept that we can make reality by just assembling a bunch of, you know, rays or lights or you know, images, which we know of as pixels, the little squares that you see on your monitor, right? The fact that, you know, we all can talk about Rick and Morty as if they're real people, it comes from this guy's sort of work. And what's interesting about it is he worked with Ed Catmull and the other guy, help me now, not Steve Jobs, but he was sort of the creative genius behind the whole concept of computer rendering images, right? But he discovered this while he was high on LSD, right? So there's this sort of, you know, Pixar is a very sort of Disney-esque, you know, puppies and light green fields and clouds and, you know, smiling mice and, you know, animatronic dogs and stuff like that. But, you know, they have this whole clean, healthy, wholesome, you know, persona that they project. Yet this guy that worked with them, who left early from Pixar, but I think he was asked to leave, was a bit of a nut bar, right? From that perspective. In fact, I tweeted the other day the word that I learned from this article, which I'm going to butcher. Jonathan, you can help me. Is Weltanschauung, which doesn't have an English translation, but what it basically means is like you inject the world you're from or the perspective you're from into the things that you do, right?
Yeah.
And he brought his whole stoner 60s mentality to this concept of computer graphics, which we all know and love today. And we all look, you know, stuff all the time. The whole concept of ray tracing came out of this. You know, ray tracing is the idea that you can basically take images, you can take data and turn it, like he actually was a data guy. He wasn't like a Photoshop guy. He was a data guy. Photoshop doesn't exist because of this guy, you know, without this guy, you know, Pixar doesn't exist without this guy. You're not, you know, Rick and Morty
modern
and
video games.
Things that are, modern video games, anything that's rendered on the screen. And like I'm doing right now, I'm learning how to do sculpture. I'm a physical tactile artist. I work with paint and clay and stone and stuff like that, but I'm learning how to do that in 3D on an iPad right now with my Apple Pencil in this really crazy program. But, you know, so that, you know, I can manifest that by actually printing it on my 3D printer. But all of that doesn't exist without this guy's, you know, concepts and work. He kind of invented computer graphics in it, if you think about it that way, right? So, so fascinating guy. Long article. The article's not too long, but it does go into it. And it's funny because they talk about this one conference where Ed Catmull and the other guy I can't remember his name of. I'm going to open the article up here. Somebody asks them whether there was sort of like the truth about, you know, where this sort of genesis of this comes from. Like, were you guys influenced by things outside of Ed Catmull and John Lasseter? That's what I'm thinking of. You know, does this come out of, he says, asked about the edgy, you know, was drugs and culture are edgy subjects for Disney, but did they have any influence on the work that, you know, Pixar came from? And their answer was, is Alvy Ray Smith in the audience? Because who else would have brought that up? And it turns out he actually was sitting in the audience, but he chose not to speak. So it's kind of an interesting thing because he was like one of the co-founders of Pixar. I think I'm not sure when Jobs came along and bought into the company, he was one of the people that was asked to leave. But yeah, it says he would freely admit that LSD helped his creative direction. So kind of cool thing. And it forewarning for the people who listen to the show who listen to More Than Just Code, because I will be talking about this on More Than Just Code as well next week. So yeah. So that's cool.
This episode brought to you by LSD. LSD makes your brain work.
It makes you see things that aren't there. All right, over to you, Jaime.
Yeah, sadly, this is not coming to Canada, given the pain you all just described. But HBO Max is apparently coming to parts of Europe on October 26th. So it's going to be.
We have a socialized sci-fi here, though. We don't need that.
Yeah, but we do, because we don't get the same advantages that they do with having actual HBO. We get.
Oh, you can tell us about the Spider-Man episodes and how they all came out in the wrong order, and okay.
All of it.
Right. So the folks who will not have those troubles will be Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, Spain, and Andorra, which I had to look up. I didn't believe was real. It totally is real. And then
like Andorians. We have Andorians. This is great.
I was like, there's no way. I'm like, and then I went down this Wikipedia rabbit hole of like why this country exists between France and Spain. It's tiny. But rounding these out are Bosnia-Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Croatia, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Moldova, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Serbia, Slovakia, and Slovenia. So
nice, good for them.
I don't know how all of that works. I do know there's, like cross promotions with Sky in the UK and other stuff for that. So it'd be kind of nice if some of these services were a little bit more uniform internationally. But there you go.
All right. See if you can hear. Yeah, see if you can hear my clenched teeth as I say this. I'm very happy for all those places.
Yeah. You can blame Napoleon. He's the one who started putting lines on the map.
That's right.
All right.
A little bit of comic book news. This one really caught my eye. I saw this earlier today. This is an article on GamesRadar.com, which occasionally has some nice scoops. And they have this news that Marvel Comics has cut ties with one of its long-term artists, an artist named Joe Bennett. Joe Bennett has done a ton of stuff for Marvel over the years. Most recently, and quite notably, he was the primary artist on the Immortal Hulk, which has been running the last 4+ years at Marvel. It's the latest sort of spin on the character, the idea being that the Hulk is so powerful that he cannot die no matter how grievously he suffers. So if, every time, Bruce Banner can get killed or whatever else, he just rises from the grave. He just cannot be stopped. Interesting concept. But I'll be honest, better concept, better stories than art. I'm not a huge Joe Bennett fan. The article that they've got says that they have cut ties with him. They have not said why. They just have said that they have done so. But the article goes on to sort of outline some allegations made by some of the people he's worked with, including his writing partner, Al Ewing, he worked with on Immortal Hulk. It's alleged that he was putting anti-Semitic elements into the backgrounds of his art pages. He apparently had been doing some sort of trolling online about, negatively against gay people. He was accused of making light of some of those kinds of situations. And it's just kind of a weird and ugly end to a long and seemingly mutually beneficial career at Marvel for this artist, and in a very weird circumstance, especially as the final issue of Immortal Hulk is about to hit the newsstands this month. They are going to relaunch a new Hulk series in the next month or two with Ryan Ottley, who very famously was the longtime illustrator of the Invincible comic book, which is now, of course, popular Amazon Prime series. But yeah, very, very weird story. I do recommend, we'll have it in our show notes. Go have a look if you want, and you can sort of see all the different sort of allegations and details. Marvel obviously hasn't commented on this, but it's very, very weird story, but very interesting.
Cool.
And the last one that I wanted to get in for us here was just an absolutely devastating celebrity death. Michael K. Williams died this week. His body was found in his place in New York. He was only 54 years old. He was most well known for playing Omar on The Wire. For anybody who's seen that show, you know how incredible a performer he was. Just an absolutely gifted actor. He took what had been a very troubled life and really channeled it into this character, and channeled it into a lot of the work that he did, and was just an absolutely captivating performer. And it's just everyone was just in shock at the concept that this person was gone so young. They're investigating obviously the cause of death. There's obviously reporting different things. We'll wait to see how that plays out. But just, I'm not, there's certainly, performers whose work I've enjoyed, whose deaths have sort of hit me. But I just could not wrap my head. I still can't wrap my head around the fact that someone both so young and so obviously gifted at his craft is just gone like that. It absolutely hit me in the gut, and it made me actually feeling very sort of selfish in that moment. I don't know if you guys recall, but Michael K. Williams was supposed to be in a Star Wars movie. As a matter of fact, he filmed all his scenes for a Star Wars movie that never saw the light of day.
Oh, wow.
He was supposed to play Dryden Voss in the Solo movie. He was supposed to be the bad guy that Paul Bettany ended up playing in the end. So if you'll recall, Lord and Miller were supposed to direct that movie. They had been filming it. There was a disagreement with the studio in the direction, and they were replaced with Ron Howard. Ron Howard came in, took the project over, and they basically looked at what they'd already filmed, decided to make some changes and go a different direction in a few areas. And one of the areas they wanted to do was to bring back Michael K. Williams after he'd already filmed all his scenes and moved on to a different project. They wanted to bring him back to film some new scenes as Dryden Voss. He was already working on his next movie and couldn't get out of that contract. So they went and they recast Paul Bettany to play the sort of big bad of that film in the end. I found myself, as I was sort of, feeling so sad for the loss of Michael K. Williams, I couldn't help but think, God, I really hope someday that we get to see some version of that movie where we get to see his performance in that world, because one, he was just a fantastic actor, and two, I think, I feel a little bit cheated that we didn't get to see his interpretation of that sort of, evil, spy stealing crime boss in a Star Wars movie, because he was so good. I wonder if he could have elevated what was kind of a mediocre movie.
Right. Well, we'll have to wait for a fan mix, I guess, or something.
Yeah. Or, again, maybe down the road, they'll sort of see the wisdom of actually, going back and, what's that for the Snyder cut? Let's look for the Lord and Miller cut of Solo. Everyone start your Twitter campaigns.
Yeah.
Free the Lord Miller cut.
Cool. Well, should we talk about some comedy now?
Yes. Let's get us out of this dark place
This is the part of the show where we start talking about Star Trek Lower Decks. This time we're talking about Season 2, Episode 5, An Embarrassment of Dooplers. And I think Jaime's doing the recap.
Nope.
Jonathan's doing the recap.
Oh, yeah, I'll do it.
Jaime did it last week. Okay, all right. Why don't you do it?
Okay, I'll do it. What the heck?
All right.
Well, we start with No Cold Open, which was, I think, something they did once last season too. Yeah. It did catch me off guard. I was like, oh, did I skip something? Did I press a button? Did I do something wrong?
I actually went back and started again. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was just so unusual, because usually there's that sort of, 1 to 2 minutes of sort of comedy, usually very light sort of march towards, just a non sequitur to the rest of the episode. But No Cold Open. So we get our credits and we jump right into An Embarrassment of Dooplers. So the Cerritos is on a mission. They are escorting the Doopler emissary to trade negotiations on Starbase 25, and the captain's log from Captain Friedman. She reveals that the Doopler race are able to duplicate themselves as an emotional defense mechanism. And we get introduced to this Doopler emissary, and as soon as he opens his mouth, the unmistakable voice of Richard Kind comes out. I love Richard Kind. He's such a fantastic, funny actor. Of course, he's done, he was, Inside Out. He was, in one of those great Pixar roles. He was in Cars as another character. He does the voice on Big Mouth of Andrew's dad. And of course, famously, he was on Spin City. He was on Mad About You. He's been in a million different things, and such a funny performer with a really distinctive voice. So great casting for this character as it plays out. They're having this meal. He's sitting there with the bridge crew. They're having this meal, and they're all just on the edge of their seats because they don't want to do anything that's going to upset him, because of course, as soon as he gets upset, his emotional defense response will kick in, and poof, they're going to be two of them. And so, they're sitting there and having this conversation. He drops his fork and he looks across, and everyone sort of holds their breath. He's, what's going to happen? And Ransom picks up his fork and throws it over his shoulder just so he doesn't feel bad. They talk about how, they're excited that, as part of this mission, they're going to get a chance to go to Starbase 25 for this annual command conference. And it's going to be, party central at this place. And Freeman's super psyched that she's going to get to go because she was, critical to the battle that they had with the Titan, or working with the Titan to stop the Pakleds. So she's got an invite and she's really excited. We go down to the lower decks where, of course, that's where our heart is. The Boimler and Mariner are doing what Boimler and Mariner are known to do, which is they are just doing grunt work. They're stocking. They're moving crates from place to place. They're like, oh, good, we're done. What do we do now? Oh, we have to go to a different place to move some crates from place to place. They are sitting there and they're working away and they're talking, and we get something that I think we've all sort of been waiting for, which is Mariner and Boimler sort of working around the conversation about him making the decision at the end of last season to ditch the Cerritos and head to the Titan with this promotion that he was so excited about. And so Mariner makes some sort of comment about, oh, here we go, you're gonna talk about that again. He's like, oh, the replicated water tastes better. Oh, and you should feel how soft the bridge chairs are. And he's just, waxing poetic about what a beautiful place the Titan is. And she sort of, shushes him and says, all right, enough of that. So they're talking about, it'd be so great. We're gonna go to this starbase. I wish we could get into this party. And so they come up with the idea. Mariner, of course, comes up with the idea. Hey, wait a minute. The Titan is on the far side of the galaxy. They would have been invited. Your transporter clone, William Boimler, is going to be invited because, of course, he's part of that crew. If we get there, we could sneak on. I could be your +1 and we can go to this amazing command party. So they sort of concoct this scheme. We cut over to Rutherford and Tendi, and they're, sitting there working on a model of the Cerritos in their spare time. So these two, uber nerds are basically spending their time off from fixing the ship to fix the little ship, which is very funny. They are going through and they're, trying to figure out, all the, the different parts, and Rutherford, is talking about, oh, it's just, the detail in this model is so great. If you look inside the windows, you can even see a little Mariner bossing a little Boimler around in the bar. Rutherford is putting together parts. He opens it up and he realizes that he sees his writing and realizes that he's left himself a message on the side of a piece, and it says, field distortion amplifier 88, and has 3 squiggly lines next to it. And they're trying to figure out, what does that mean? And so he's, trying to sort of figure out this puzzle. And this, of course, ties back to the fact that, at the end of last season, Rutherford ended up having part of his memory wiped as he lost his cybernetic device. And so now he's sort of kind of rebuilding his life. We saw a few episodes ago, he, couldn't decide whether or not he liked pears. And Tendi was really worried that that he didn't like her anymore. And so, this is sort of continuing that sort of theme of Rutherford sort of retracing his steps or reliving some of his previous experiences. We go down to the bridge, or go up to the bridge. Freeman is there. They arrive at the starbase. And she's talking on the view screen, and she sort of says, you know, oh, I'm so glad that we're here. I'm so glad to get this emissary off of the Cerritos. This guy is a humongous pain in the butt. And as she says that, she turns around and he's just walked onto the bridge. Of course, he is aghast. He is embarrassed. He is upset, and poof, he duplicates himself. And then they're uncomfortable because they just duplicated, and then they start duplicating, and the bridge quickly starts filling up with Dooplers. The Starfleet official that she's talking to on the view screen basically takes one look at all the Dooplers duplicating rapidly on the front of the ship and says, "Oh no, we are not
tribbles."
We are not taking that aboard this space station. Forget it. You figure out your Doopler problem, and then you can come off the ship. In the meantime, you're on your own." So we cut back down to the lower decks. Boimler and Mariner are, you know, concocting more of their plan to get on board the space station and go to this party. There's a great conversation about scants, which are those beautiful sort of long tunics that they have worn in past episodes of Star Trek, which are the sort of the long formal Star Trek robes that sort of come down just above the knee. And is it going to be a scant event? Are we going to wear our scants? That again, just great playing on the Star Trek lore to get those jokes across. Mariner, the captain comes across the comm and basically says, "Hey, you're going to start seeing these Dooplers showing up all over the ship. You know, try not to offend them. It's just going to make it worse." Mariner being Mariner, she's like, this is a perfect opportunity. They're going to be so bogged down with these Dooplers, they're not even going to notice if we hop on the transporter, beam ourselves over there, and go to this party. Boom, they're great. They beam over there, and she's like, oh, look at this, look at that. He says, how do you know so much about this place? She said, oh, I used to live here. Of course you did. Tying again back to this sort of Mariner's been everywhere and done everything and traveled extensively and lived everywhere. She's talking about, all the places that she's seen. Oh, there's a Quark's bar. So that's, I think, the second time we've seen a Quark's bar franchise across the galaxy. She is there. All of a sudden we see this sort of shady character following them, speaks into his communicator and says, Mariner's back. We come back and we see this sort of scary looking, shady looking character. And it turns out his name is Moldus. And he refers to Beckett Mariner as Becky, which I think is hilarious. It never occurred to me that anyone would ever call her Becky. He drops the "You left me on SETI Alpha 4. That's even way worse than SETI Alpha 5," which again ties back to old Trek. He says, hey, you owe me for sort of screwing me over before. If you tell me if you help me with this little supply run that I need to do, I will tell you where this super secret party is. And, the mission turns out to be transporting little bottles of data-shaped bubble bath from one part of the station to another, followed by the line, are you sure these are all datas? Looks like a couple of them might be lores. Yeah, actually, there might be a few lores in there. Cut back to Rutherford and Tendi. They are, still working away on this model. They're trying to figure it out. He finds yet another part with these weird writing and some squiggly lines. He's trying to figure out what are these messages that I was leaving for myself? What was I trying to do here? Shax sort of bursts into the room that they're in and sort of says, okay, we're running out of space for these things. Here's some Dooplers, and the Dooplers are still duplicating and duplicating and duplicating, and they're having all these hilarious Richard Kind breakdowns. They go up to the bridge. So we go up to the bridge. And they decide to take a different approach. Like, okay, we're not going to insult you. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to say anything. So all of a sudden there's this moment of silence, at which point the Dooplers start freaking out. Oh my God, they're giving us the silent treatment, and start massively reproducing again. They're reproducing so much that they are wall to wall across the entire bridge. Back down to Rutherford and Tendi. And their room is rapidly filling up with Dooplers to the point where they are, again, facing the crush. They're trying to stay above them, like the water, rising them towards the ceiling. And, we're starting to see that Rutherford's getting more and more agitated. Tendy's like, just leave the model. Why are you so obsessed with this model? He's like, I have to finish this. I have to do this to get this thing done. And we're, trying to figure out, well, why is he so obsessed with this? Back to Mariner and Boimler, and they are having this sort of conversation as they're transporting the illicit data shampoo across, or data bubble bath across the station in this sort of ATV Jeep looking thing. It looks like the suckers they were driving around in Star Trek Nemesis. And they are having that same conversation where, Mariner's clearly mad that, Boimler, was keeping his, secrets. He was, wasn't telling her how he was feeling. And then she's mad. She feels betrayed that he left. They gets pulled over by station security. And they're like, well, it's going to be fine. They call back to Moldus, and they're sort of saying, oh, got pulled over for security. They're not going to bother us over some bubble bath. And he's like, well, they probably would not like they'd probably be okay with the bubble bath, but they're probably not going to like the Klingon disruptors I've got buried in the boxes underneath those. They're like, oh crap, we have to get out of here. It's been a setup. This guy's clearly trying to get Mariner thrown in jail. Boom. They decide they're just going to go for it. And by they, I mean Mariner, because of course it had to be Mariner. She floors it. Off they go, and the chase is on. And it's one of the most fun, goofy chase scenes that we've seen in Star Trek ever. They wind through the casino, they go through the barber shop, the fine men's clothing shop. They almost, but don't hit somebody who looks an awful lot like Pike in his wheelchair, the beeping buttons. What do you think? Was it actually Pike? He'd be pretty darn old.
Yeah, that's what I meant with the sort of sneak peek of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, whoever it was, he just kind of goes beep.
Yeah, beep, which I'm sure is an expletive.
I thought they had a guy in that same situation from, what was it, The Farm, where Boimler is partially phased, right?
Yep.
So it could be that dude and not necessarily Pike.
Yep. But again, another funny throwback joke. They go through this one area filled with fish people. They are headed towards this set of stairs going down, and Boimler basically says, oh, you would never even consider going down there. She says, no, I'd never do that. And then she goes up the other flight of stairs.
Meanwhile, they yell, we're not fish. We're not people.
We're not. Yeah, that's right. We're just fish. We're not people. They fly through a Vulcan ship at one point. Vulcans. And while this chase is going on, we got back to Cerritos. Rutherford and Tendi are trying to get to higher ground. Things are looking pretty bad. The Dooplers are looking like they're gonna, squash them up against the ceiling. And Rutherford is just really, really upset about this model. And Tendi sort of says, what's so important about that? And she says, he says, I feel like I'm competing against my ghost. I feel like if I can't do this, I'm not measuring up to my past self. I'm not measuring up to the person I was before I had my memory wiped. I feel like I'm lesser than, and so it's a nice sort of, again, throwback to this, he's not quite over this in the same way that Mariner's not quite over Boimler leaving. Rutherford's still got some baggage from this sort of traumatic event that happened at the end of the last season, which is cool for 5 episodes into the next season, that they're not just, back to episodic, dropping it and moving on. So we cut back to the chase scene. They go into the aviary. At one point, one of the security vehicles crashes into a tree. The avian couple falls out of the tree. Oh, sure, let's move to the aviary, he says. Again, just goofy. They're about to, Mariner and Boimler are about to crash into this farmer. They dodge the farmer, and instead they end up going flying through the air and into this reservoir. And of course, as they hit the reservoir, all the bottles of data bubble bath, open up, and there's bubbles everywhere. They end up crawling out of the water, and Boimler says, oh, I just threw up data bubble bath. They finally are, okay, this is it. We've had it. We're making for the party. We're gonna get to this party. And so they threaten the guy. He gives them the address. And of course, it's in the most obvious place. It's in the same place it is every year. They didn't even bother to look. So they've gone through all this for nothing. I loved Mariner's line where she's like, we are going to that party. I didn't put on underwear for nothing.
Yeah, that was a weird statement. I'm like, I guess they wear like a full bodysuit anyway, so who would know? And there's like no visible panty line, I guess, if you're wearing no underwear at all, going commando. But it was still kind of a weird thing to point out.
Yeah, but again, a perfectly Mariner line too. So they go in, and of course they get to the front of the line, and the person checking people in, oh, what's your name? Oh, my name is William Boimler, and I'm from the Titan. And of course Boims gets to go up the stairs, and he's about to go in. And what's your name? Oh, well, my name's Beckett Mariner. And oh, what ship are you on? Oh, I'm from the Cerritos. Oh, you're not on the list. Oh no, she's my +1. Oh no, you're not allowed to bring her in. Nope, sorry, you're not on the list. And so he's standing on the stairs, and she's standing off to the side of the stairs, and she's just fuming, and she's still mad about the Titan. And they sort of storm off in different directions, and he's like, well, I'm going anyways. And so he goes up the stairs, and up he goes. Cut back to Rutherford and Tendi, and they figure out that what had been happening, all these little messages that Rutherford was finding inside this model are because Tendi points out we never finished that model. We used that as an excuse. It was this perfect way to have this social deflector dish, which I thought is just one of the most beautiful Star Trek phrases I've ever heard. The social deflector dish. We would go and we would work on this thing so people would leave us alone. And the whole point wasn't to finish it. We never finished it. And all those little messages you left for yourself were ways that you could make it last longer so that we didn't finish it, so that people would leave us the heck alone. I thought that was so great. So they're like, okay, well, how are we going to get out of this? We're almost going to get squashed by these Dooplers. What do we do next? So they decide they're going to detonate the warp core. So they do it just like they do it in all the previous episodes of Star Trek over the years, where the warp core basically pops out, and instead they fire it up in the air, and it basically opens this access tube where they can jump off of the platform that they're on, get out of the way, and avoid being squashed by the Dooplers. They followed by a very funny line by Richard Kind. They don't like us. Back to the space station, Boimler, finds Mariner. She's drowning her sorrows at a bar. He makes good. He apologizes. He says, I went to the party, and we did see a scene where, Boimler goes up to the party, and he doesn't fit in. He comes out and he says, I went to the party, and it sucked, and I missed you. And he apologizes, said, I'm sorry. I never told you that I was going to the Titan, but I knew as soon as I told you, you'd try and talk me out of it. And it was something I had to try to do. We go back to the Cerritos once again, and Shax is crowd surfing the Dooplers, which is pretty funny. And Freeman has just sort of hit the end of her rope. So she decides, you know what? That's enough of this. You suck. I've had it. You are the worst. And it turns out that being angry or upset actually makes the Dooplers recombine. So then they basically decide, okay, let's broadcast this across the ship and tell everyone in the crew to be mean to the Dooplers, so that they will basically reform back into their singular emissary once again. So we get some great little cameos, little moments across the different members of the crew. Shax, of course, being Bajoran, says, "Your paw is weak," which I thought was an excellent Bajoran burn. Ta'ana just rips off, Dr. Ta'ana just rips off a bunch of vulgarities that they bleep out. And of course it works, and we end up with this one emissary who's just in a huff. Oh, that's it, I'm leaving. We go back to Boimler and Mariner. They are, sitting there in this bar, and, they're talking with the bartender, and the bartender says, oh, you two struck out of going to that party, eh? Well, you're not alone. This bar has seen many people over the years who have struck out at this bar, struck out at this party and haven't been able to go, like these two, and points down at the bar, and they're carved into the bar. It says Kirk plus Spock. And they realize, oh, this is way better than going to this party full of, captains and their number ones. I'd way rather be here. Finally, Freeman and the command crew beam down. They're super excited. They finally solved the Doopler problem. They're going to get there. They're going to get in there. They're going to go to this party. And of course, they get to the door, and the bouncer basically says, you're from the Cerritos. Sorry, you're not on the list. You can't come in. So, they look at there and they're like, they're trying to like wave to people. Oh, you know me. Oh, no, nobody will let them in. And it turns out that O'Connor is on the list. O'Connor, he's the DJ. Of course he's allowed in there. Mariner finds Freeman and the command crew sitting outside, having a snack, and sort of says, hey, you know what? You guys are, all good with us. Come and hang out with us. You won't believe what we saw in this bar. It's way better than hanging at that stupid party. We like our own company. It's all good. The emissary, now a singular Doopler again, shows up and basically says, I've got an hour to kill before I go off to my next, thing. Do you guys know a place where I could get a drink around here? And they say, oh yeah, we have the perfect place. And they beam him into the private party, the command party. And, immediately you can hear the sounds of him being offended and the popping noise that accompanies it. Back to Rutherford and Tendi. They're, now back to be able to do their thing. And they decide that Tendi gives Rutherford a gift, and it's a Deep Space Nine model for them to work on together. And Rutherford's super excited because it's got a Jadzia and a Esri. That's right, Esri. And we got back once more to the space station, and Boimler is, talking about, it's okay we didn't go to that party, I was just all these, stupid number ones. And of course, Mariner tricks him into admitting he'd actually be the number one and she'd be the commander or the captain. And she's like, haha, you're the number one. You have to grow a beard. And then there's where we wrap it up. Good episode. Funny. Really just full of goofy stuff. The car chase scene was...
And lots of little Easter eggs, too. Visual Easter eggs as well.
Yeah. I think it's one that whole chase scene, I think, would benefit from like half speed watching, just because I know there was a ton of stuff happening in there.
Well, at the end of as they pull back the camera, you see the what's the name of the guy that invented warp technology?
Oh, Zephram Cochrane.
Zephram Cochrane's. They see his ship in model of his ship, and then the Doomsday Machine, which is what my sister and I call the ice cream cone that ate planets.
Yeah, that's right.
You see that in there, and we saw the Pike character, and actually last week we did. I don't know if we mentioned it too, but at one point Rutherford is trying to fight the Gumado with Kirk's bamboo cannon, from the Gorn episode.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like what they're going to do, and then it turns out to be a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, I was pretty keen on the Captain Shelby callback to Commander Shelby from The Best of Both Worlds in TNG.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, they are the absolute masters of really just, and across all the Star Trek stuff. And I think maybe it was particularly made poignant by Star Trek Day, where there was sort of this recap of the totality, the 800 and plus episodes of Star Trek, but these guys they love it. They clearly love it. And they're just, a bunch of people in a writer's room and just having so much fun, just unearthing 55 years of lore and just playing in this sandbox. And it's just such a fun show to watch.
Yeah. Good times had by all.
And on that note, what if zombies?
I forgot to watch What If this week. So you guys are on your own there. Yeah.
That's scandalous. Zombies?
Give it a shot. Yeah.
Well, do you want to hold off? We don't want to spoil it for you.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
All right, Jaime. What do you think of the zombie invasion in the Marvel Universe?
I liked it, but it was a little uneven. And I think it starts off pretty dark, kind of like the Marvel Zombies comics, and then gets sort of weirdly lighthearted for parts. Yeah. And then goes dark again towards the end.
Yeah, I completely agree with your assessment, Jaime. It starts out, it has a little bit of humor in that sort of, Hulk won't come out. How are they going to do this? It's unnecessary for you guys to, eat the opponents after you beat them kind of thing. And yeah, right. Like, I mean, the part where they, are trying to sort of, fix up this way to go and get on the train and that part where this, stuff, people are getting, killed, and it's kind of dark, and there's some fan favorite characters in there. We sort of get the most sort of motley crew of survivors, and in very unusual mix of people, including Happy Hogan and Sharon Carter, and just all these different sort of people in here. And and then it sort of gets really, really dark, and then there's a couple of twists there, and it ends up being like super, super light, and we get some Paul Rudd humor and some Spider-Man humor, and but then you also mix that with like these heartbreaking scenes where like this character is nobly sacrificing themselves, and it was just kind of all over the place. And it's funny because after the last, the first 2 episodes were kind of light, and the last 2 episodes have been really dark. And this one was kind of both, all mushed together into one sort of big pile. And I can't say that it's off tone or off brand, because you're right, Jaime. Like the Marvel Zombies comics are kind of like that too. There is, in spite of the fact that they are kind of dark, there's a little levity to it. There's a little sort of weirdness. At one point they're carrying around one character's head, and it has a bit of levity to it too, but this seemed a little uneven. That being said, I found this to be the best episode so far as a replacement casting. The person that they had do the voice on Tom Holland's behalf was named Hudson Thames, and he was really good. If I didn't listen hard, I don't know that I would have immediately thought, oh, that's not Tom Holland. And that, I think, added some strength to it, because Spider-Man is sort of the emotional core of the episode too.
Yeah, I thought he sounded pretty good. I didn't know he wasn't the one until they showed the credits.
Yeah, and everybody else was the real actors again. Including we got a pretty wide variety of people from the different franchises. There was characters from Ant-Man. There was characters from Captain America. There was sort of a whole mishmash. Mark Ruffalo, of course, as the Hulk, and Paul Bettany as Vision, and it was still pretty star-studded, all things being equal. I still don't know what to make of this series, where we're getting closer to the end than to the beginning by far, and it's I really thought there would be some more cohesiveness to it, some more glue, and I knew that the whole point was to sort of show the what if of it all. What if one thing changed and something sort of different happened? But I really feel like I thought, coming off such a strongly connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe show like Loki, and the fact that they teed up this sort of multiverse idea, that there would be more glue here. And maybe we're looking for something that isn't there. Maybe we set unrealistic expectations, but I also think maybe this is all tied to where we're going next, which is to say, the Spider-Man, the Doctor Strange, the multiverse writ large across different things. Maybe we're going to see, Agent Carter in live action as opposed to a cartoon. Maybe we're going to see the evil Doctor Strange. Maybe we're going to see, zombies. Who knows, right?
Who knows? The shadow knows.
The comic booky blam 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 stuff was fun as well. Happy. Yeah.
Happy with one of Tony's repulsors. Did you just say blam? And as in everything ever, Paul Rudd steals the episode. He was so funny. In an episode that was at times pretty grim and dark, him in the way that they used him in this episode was super, super funny. All that to say, go watch it, Tim. You'll enjoy it.
For sure. So what do we at the where's my notes gone?
Watch list.
Let's do the watch list.
A couple quick ones from me. So the first trailer dropped for Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. This is on the heels of the Lego Star Wars holiday special that they had last year on Disney Plus. This year they're doing a Halloween special. So we get a little glimpse of what's happening there. It looks like they're creating basically a haunted house in a Darth Vader / Dark Side of the Force theme, set in the time period around the last trilogy. So Poe Dameron appears to be the star of it. It looks goofy. It looks fun. It looks funny. It looks light. I'm all in on this. Check out the trailer if you're into that stuff. We got a full proper trailer for Last Night in Soho, the new Edgar Wright movie. We had gotten a bit of a teaser where we were trying to sort of pull at what this is about. This trailer is a little more on the nose, and sort of explains, that there is this sort of time travel, Twilight Zone-y kind of murder mystery that's trying to be sort of solved. It looks really good. I'm not a huge sort of thriller horror kind of person, but Matt Smith, looked really cool. The sets look really cool. I do like both of the female performers, Anya Taylor-Joy, and I wish I could remember the other young woman's name from. She was one of the stars of Taika Waititi's last film. I'm going to look it up because I'm going to feel like a fool if I don't. Jojo Rabbit. It was it was a really captivating trailer, and I was like way in after seeing it. Thomasin McKenzie, that's the young woman's name. She was really great in Jojo Rabbit, and I think it's cool that she's already in taking over as a lead in this movie. Check out the trailer. Absolutely. This is another one where I'm like, I really hope that theaters feel like a safe space, because I really want to see this in the theater. I love Edgar Wright's movies in the theater, and I really want to see this one if it's
definitely
possible.
For sure.
Last thing is just a confirmation, we're getting the first episode of Why the Last Man on September 13th. It's on FX on Hulu in the States. It's on Disney Plus through Star here in Canada. So that's good news. I was a little worried that we might get on some sort of weird delay or something, but it doesn't appear to be the case. It looks like we're going to get it at the same time across Canada and the United States. Of course, we talked about this previously. It's famously based on Brian K. Vaughan and Pia Guerra's graphic novel series, which was an absolute masterpiece. I have read a few preliminary reviews that were not encouraging, but I think I'm still going to give it a try and sort of see if I feel like this is capturing the tone of the book, which was so good. So I will report back next week and let you know what I think of the first episode.
Cool. Big fan of Edgar Wright movies too.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Honey, what do you got?
For the second week in a row, I've selected a song for ones. Did you all enjoy last week's song, the What Would Captain Picard Do?
We liked it when you sang it. Actually,
it's always better when you do your rendition.
This next one I really can't sing because it doesn't have words per se, like a chant, but it's For the Damaged Coda. This is from the Melody of Certain Damaged Lemons album from Blonde Redhead. And it is a song that is very important in the season finale for Rick and Morty. Pretty well fitting for where they take the last few moments of that show.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, y'all didn't see this. It was making its way on the internet as a meme for like tragic things happening in your life. Check those out on like Reddit or something. But the song itself is pretty good, kind of haunting.
Cool. All right, well, I guess that's it for another week. So, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
You can always find me on Twitter and Instagram as @JPKNews.
And Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevOfTheHair.
Right. My name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA. On the Twitter machine is where you'll find me. And so until next time, we'll see you in the future. Unless we see you in the past, that is. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spotcast Podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
never know. Like, we could like do some timey-wimey thing. And,
Wait, can we do that? All right, who's got the board queen in the freezer?
Well, it's not it's either that or you just have to get yourself, a bird of prey with transparent aluminum.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, if there happens to be a Klingon bird of prey with spots for a couple of humpback whales, you're all set.
And I have one of those classic Macs with the mouse where you can sort of say, computer.
Hello, computer.
Yeah. Yes. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. I just finished watching Val. It's a movie about Val Kilmer.
Oh, yeah. The trailer looks interesting. It's a weird one. The trailer looks kind of odd. Is it good?
Well, so what it is his younger brother was a big movie nut, kind of like Spielberg, right? And but he died tragically at like the age of 10 or 12 or something like that. And kind of like devastated Kilmer, and but he carried on the tradition of videoing everything. So he had a video camera at a young age, and he got into Juilliard when he was a young kid. Anyway, so the story is now he's got throat cancer, right?
Yeah, he lost his ability to talk, right?
So he can't talk. He's got the plug in his throat.
Yeah.
So he kind of croaks when he talks, and he was just doing a one man Mark Twain thing. And it's interesting because he goes through his whole career, and it's really interesting because he can't talk, and all of a sudden you hear his voice going, "My name is Val Kilmer," and then they flash over to his son who's reading the part. So all the sort of, it's basically a biopic, right? It's like autobiographical because he talks about all the stuff, but he had a high def camera on set with him all the time when he was in plays and stuff like that. So pretty much documented just about everything, right? So
cool.
His first role out of Juilliard, he got this role in a play, and then they said he was like the first lead, and they said, okay, you can be the first lead. Then they said, oh, you know what? We're going to make you the second lead because Kevin Bacon's available. And then and he went to school with Kevin Bacon as well, right? So Kevin Bacon becomes the first lead, and then says, oh, by the way, we're going to make you the third lead because Sean Penn's available. So anyway, but it's kind of a tragic, story, but it's kind of interesting to sort of see all the behind the scenes and all the sort of rumors you've heard or stories you've heard about him and his method acting and his trouble on set and stuff like that. Like the guy who took over the island of Dr. Moreau, who's the one that sort of drove up his reputation as a troubled actor to work with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't like the fact that he had a camera pointed in his face all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, funny thing, eh? And he wouldn't take direction from the actors. Yeah, it was really sort of interesting to see from Kilmer's perspective, right? So
yeah. I mean, he was always somebody I really gravitated to early. Again, some of the early comedies that he was in, I really enjoyed his performance, and of course, he sort of his apex in the 90s with things like Tombstone and The Doors, and he really he was A-list for a while there.
Well, he was Batman, and he said one of the things that he talks about in the movie is one of the things that sort of crucified him was he decided he stepped down after the first movie.
Yeah, I think everybody expected you're going to be that for a while, and that wasn't his expectation. Yeah.
Well, he was like he couldn't move in the rubber suit. He couldn't, raise his arms or whatever. He couldn't move. And then he realized after a while, all he was meant to do was just stand there and in the light,
Mm-hmm.
And to him that wasn't acting, and that's why he stepped away from it, right? So, plus that movie that was the one with Jim Carrey and
Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah.
Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah, they were over the top in that, right?
Oh, so, yeah.
He was eclipsed by it. I don't think that was the issue, but I mean, yeah, I think it was sort of it was impossible he couldn't breathe, he couldn't hear anybody.
Yep.
Right? So they stopped talking to him after a while. He's like, okay. And he basically, I think he described it on Leno or something like that. He said, you act for a bit and then you fall down. Yeah. And they pick you back up again,
Yeah. I remember seeing his suit when I was in New York at DC headquarters, and they had a couple of the suits sort of all lined up there. I remember looking at them thinking I cannot believe a human being is shoehorned into these very uncomfortable pieces of rubber all day. I could completely understand why you'd burn out on it, but yeah, I mean, it's disappointing. Again, those kind of roles can be legacy defining if they're done right. And not only did he come on after Tim Burton left, he got that Joel Schumacher was his director. they started getting campier. They were getting a little sort of silly. And then, and it wasn't exactly like it was a part that you could sink your teeth into when you're like, I can barely move.
Well, and especially since he was trained as a Juilliard, actor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like proper, stagecraft, right?
Yeah. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones is an Oscar winner. She was dressed up like the Two-Face.
No, but don't forget though, Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones were given like a lot of latitude in their roles.
Oh,
right?
for sure. I mean, that was Jim Carrey at one of his most Jim Carrey moments, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially in the role that he was born to play, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So it was really really good, like really interesting thing. And there's another one on called Kid 90 or something like that, which seems to be a similar thing. Like it's another sort of, they made it with a video camera kind of, unless that's like how it's built up to be. But I saw a quick trailer for that one.
Yeah.
You might sit and watch that. I watched The Courier too, which was a good movie. The Benedict Cumberbatch one, spy movie.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. It's on Prime.
Okay.
Just came out on Prime like last week or so.
Is that the one where he's kind of a jerk?
No.
Which one am I thinking? I thought there was one I saw recently that seemed like it was him sort of off cast or whatever.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a strange one. It's not quite as sophisticated as Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, but it's that kind of story. He's an English businessman who's recruited into going to Russia and helping their mole over there send information back during the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? So yeah, and then he gets I won't spoil it for you, but yeah, so it's played well, and the woman who plays his wife is really good. She's in the last version of Fargo.
Okay.
She plays an American in Fargo, but I don't know if you've seen the Fargo with the guy from Saturday Night Live, comedian Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock.
No, I haven't watched it in a while.
Yeah. Well, that was I missed it when it was on, so I've been trying to catch up on it. I'm waiting for it to come out on Netflix or something so I can watch it.
Yeah. This was a big sci-fi week. Jesus, a lot of stuff to talk about.
Well, and we still have Tadum to look forward to.
Oh, yeah. Who's responsible for watching the Tadum press conference? Because
is it going to be like a 5-hour extravaganza?
Man,
is it 5 hours?
I mean, I did not know that Star Trek Day was going to be quite so long as you all talked about.
I thought it was going to be like 2 hours tops, and I thought, well, if I have time, I'll sit down and I'll watch it. So, I made supper for everybody, and we all sort of settled in to do our own things. And I was like, oh, I'm sitting here on the sofa. I'll just pop it on YouTube on my TV, and I'll just sort of watch along. And
did you watch it on YouTube or Facebook?
I watched it on YouTube. So they were streaming it on the Star Trek channel on YouTube, and that was actually a pretty decent feed for it. But it was just sort of badly, like it really could have benefited from like a director, like somebody who was just like keeping things moving, because it was just kind of meandering and there was a few spots where like jokes weren't landing and there's awkward silences and those the parts on the red carpet, again, those two young women, I'm obviously, there's certainly benefits to having young people and particularly women interested in science fiction, but I was not loving the work that they were doing across the board. Some of it was really fun, like they were very excited, but they did not seem terribly knowledgeable, and that kind of set things back a little bit in my Star Trek fans are just so deep into the lore and knowledgeable. I can't be the only Trek fan who was kind of cringing their way through that.
This ends up with the he's confused but he got the spirit meme that comes back to mind.
Oh, it was when they hit Ricardo Montalban that I was just like, oh dear Lord,
help us all.
Like, this is the actor who played like probably the most iconic villain in Star Trek history. Is that a stretch?
Yeah, I'm as somebody with a Spanish background, last name and first name, I didn't hear it myself, but I could see how people would anglicize it. And it's not like the most common name that you would see around the world. So it's not like Gomez or something.
It's true, although it's funny because, for people of definitely Tim's, certainly mine, I'm not sure if it trickled down to you and your age, Jaime, but, this guy was a household name. Fantasy Island was a massive program. He was a star for 25 years, you know.
And he did car commercials.
Like this
Corinthian leather, Cordoba leather.
Yeah, he was a, you know,
Cordoba. I think it was Cordoba.
That's right. That's right.
Which is a made up word. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, he was just sort of, you know, everywhere, and it just seems so weird that
selling coffee.
Nobody remembers him for the next generation, which again seems even stranger just because, you know, these shows do exist. You know, the TOS stuff, you know, Wrath of Khan. All right, I'm going to say it. Probably the best Star Trek movie. Come at me. Let's go.
Well, I was going to say it definitely is of that generation, of those folks, right? I liked First Contact myself, but yeah, I think no, not First Contact. What's the one where they go back in time?
Voyage Home.
The Voyage Home. Mm-hmm.
No. With the Borg.
That was First Contact. You got that right.
Yeah.
Oh, that was First Contact. Okay, what was the one with? Oh, Generations was the one where they crossed over with the Nexus and stuff. Yeah. No, I think you're right. Of all the villains that you think about in Star Trek, I mean, like Harry Mudd's up there.
Yeah, but really, I mean, Harry Mudd was a TV character.
No, it's let me finish. Harry Mudd and Khan definitely, because I mean, there's that whole meme of Kirk just saying Khan, you know, which you can use for any situation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably the Borg as a sort of a species is probably up there with terms of terror and, you know, like.
But again, not centralized. Not like there's one, like the Queen, I guess, was supposed to be the ultimate version of that, but still wasn't. I mean, really, like Alex Krieg in that role in the movie was great, but.
Well, I mean, so the thing about the Borg to me is communism, right? In a sense, like it's socialism, communism, that the whole sort of fear of everybody being painted with the same brush, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that they had standout characters like the Borg Queen didn't make sense to me at the time. Right?
Yeah.
You know, then you had people like Hugh and 7 of 9 and stuff like that too, but they're individuals that get pulled out of it. And then Locutus as well, right? Like the whole concept of taking this, you know, major character in, you know, the Federation, turning him into one of their lieutenants or captains or whatever they have them over there, right?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you know, and then I think they had that numbered in Voy. They had that numbered species. They never gave them a name. They just called them a number. And they were kind of like
species 842 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and they were pretty out there in terms of like they were supposed to be like undefeatable, right?
But again, without that central, like that was a broadly a race. You're right. I mean, I think the Borg are probably the best realized sort of big bad. But as far as a single person, I'm not sure you can top Khan.
No, I don't think you can. I think you're right there.
And
he definitely stands out as the number one. You know, I mean, because when they even had Benedict Cumberbatch replay him.
Yeah.
Well, not quite as well.
No.
I mean, I love that actor, but I mean, it wasn't quite as successful.
No, I agree. It was.
I think Chris Pine was the villain in that series of movies.
I think J.J. Abrams was the villain in those movies.
Or what do you call it? Somebody called him Jar Jar Abrams the other day. Yeah.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah, who was that called him Jar Jar Abrams?
I don't know, but that person...
Oh, no, it was John Wilker. When John Wilker on one of the last... Or I interviewed him on More Than Just Code, and he called him Jar Jar Abrams.
That's a good one. I'll write that one down.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, show.
All things being equal, there's 5 Star Trek shows in production right now. That's pretty awesome.
It's still funny to see people online, you know, trolling and looking for YouTube clicks. So it's like, oh, this is like a disaster. I'm like, bro, CBS and now Paramount are dumping insane amounts of money into this. And unless you think they're like, oh, they're just dumping money to grow big and not make a whole bunch of profit, it's a success. Like it's just proven out by here, right? You might have had the reasonable argument during when it was just disco, but then the next show, and now all these simultaneous shows. I think it's a bona fide success. Not to say it's perfect, but you know, it's a lot better than the dark. You know, we were joking about Jar Jar Abrams, but if we didn't have that to sort of rekindle the spirit, we probably would have been without Star Trek for quite a long time. And there was that big gap between the early end of Enterprise and the next thing that came out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's true.
Well, I mean, I suffered through the whole waiting for Star Trek 2 to come out, right? Like the version they did in the 70s. And a lot of things a lot of costumes and sets and stuff that they've used in Next Generation and other subsequent shows came out of that Star Trek 2 concept, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's like, storyboards and costume designs and stuff like that were all created for those series and then just never got produced.
Yeah. Here's something that has occurred to me, and you guys give me your thoughts. So Star Trek is now at 55 years. There were some years in there where there wasn't some. The love has been there. The fans have been there.
It's always been played on TV.
Yeah, it's never been off TV. They may not have been making new ones, but it's never been off TV in 55 years.
Yeah.
Star Wars is 44 years. And in that time, there was a lot of long gaps with no content. Now we're sort of in the golden age, which sounds ridiculous because I thought those last 3 movies were kind of trash, but or the last trilogy anyways.
Compared to the whole scope of Star Wars.
Yes, compared to the quality level that I'd come to expect, in fairness. Yeah. But 44 years is still nothing to sneeze at, and now we're sort of in this golden age where, not only do we have, The Mandalorian, but we've also got, Bad Batch, and we've also got, they're doing the Ahsoka series, and they're doing the Rangers of the New Republic, and they're doing the Boba Fett series, and this is a great time to be a Star Wars fan too. We're only 11 years, if you can believe it, 11 years into the MCU, and that is just a monster now.
As movies go, though, but it's been around for a long time.
Certainly, right? as a comic book, enterprise, it's been since the 60s, so it's actually the oldest if you view it through that prism.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure, if we're talking about sort of, the whole sort of where it's at now. I'm wondering, I wonder if we're going to be, I may be the last survivor of us in the end of this, but I wonder if, we're going to see, 50 years of the MCU. And not just, 50 years of Marvel writ large, but yeah, I wonder if they're still going to be making, Marvel products in that way, 50 years from now, that people are just like, oh man, I watched this old movie called Iron Man. Oh, this ancient movie called Avengers. But it all, man, it was like, it wasn't even in quadraphonic 64D,
Yeah. It didn't project right into your eyeballs, that pill you ate.
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny because, so much of the zeitgeist is trapped around, obviously Disney is a monster as far as, marketing, promotion, all the tie-ins, the toys, the branding, the amusement parks, all that stuff that elevates the Marvel stuff and the Star Wars stuff and has the last, decades plus. But I don't know. Do you think Trek is on par with those things, or is it a notch below now? Where are those things as far as how they line up? Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking, I listen to, a lot of pods. I read a lot of blogs, and there's certainly way more excitement for the Star Wars Marvel stuff than there is for the Star Trek stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame because the Star Trek stuff, there's so much good stuff there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. For me, I lost the first 6 months of my work on Mac, period. Because the guy who sold me the thing said, when you're finished, you just save space on your drive, you archive everything over to tape and whatever. And then 6 months into it, I went, I want to get that file back. And I went to restore it from tape, and the backup software said, there's no tape drive connected. I'm like, what? And then when I went to contact the company that made the drive, they went out of business. So the very first 6 months of work I did, and it was all crap. But I mean, I'm an artist. I like to keep everything, right? Yeah. So I learned that lesson right from the get-go. I have CDs and DVDs full of backup data that at some point in my life I'll go back and try and recover it. But because I remember I did some 3D drawings back in the day, and I have printouts of them, but I don't have the actual data, and I'd love to go back and grab those and render them with today's technology.
All right, but you're sounding a little George Lucas-y now.
Yeah, no, I don't. No, I shut the fuck up. I don't want to change them. I just want to render them again, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Lucas. We understand.
Yeah.
On that happy note.
Yeah. All right.
I'm just gonna bring back my original vision. I just want it to look like my vision was back in the time.
of skewing your vision. Like the thing about it is like it's funny because it's funny. Like again, I went back and watched a little bit more of that Star Wars movie the other day. The scene where Harrison Ford is running down he's got the gun and he's running after the stormtroopers that are running away from him. Yeah. And he goes around the corner, and there's like 5 guys standing in the room, and then he turns around and runs back. Yeah. Right?
There's like 1,000
like a dead end. Well, in the redo, there's like hundreds of them. Yeah. Like they're just standing around waiting for someone to run down the hall in a dead end. Hello, but from the point of view of filmcraft, like I love Edgar Wright's talks because he talks about how like he has that one thing where. A filler piece where he like the scene where you've seen it 1,000 times. But let's get ready to go to the thing, whatever, and they show them lacing up their shoes and pouring the coffee and brushing their teeth and like it's all these short little vignettes. That's a movie trick, right? That they do. They have these little snap, sort of quick little slide vignettes and like little snippets of stuff they throw together to fill in to tell a story in a really small amount of time. The same way that Harrison Ford runs down the hallway, sees a bunch of stormtroopers and runs back, right? You only need to see that scene for a split second and your brain goes, uh-oh, and then you run back because of the fight or flight thing. But if you go back and examine it with a frickin' microscope, it's just 5 guys in a hallway, From the point of view of movie craft, it works. Yeah. Right? Because your brain goes, there's not just 2 guys. Now it's 5 guys, and because Harrison Ford is screaming as he runs back, you're like, oh my God, something horrible is happening, But, when you sit down and watch the movie for the very first time, you don't really have time to count the number of guys in the hallway, right? Anyway, that's my point. Like George Lucas, as a young director, used stagecraft and movie craft to make movie magic, right? He didn't need to go back and re-render those stupid X-Wings and all that stuff. I'm sorry. And I'm still upset about I was watching the animated series today. I watched the first episode of the animated series Star Trek, right? And yeah, it's actually surprisingly good, right? Like, the anime, it's like the old Spider-Man cartoon. Like, it's very, cardboardy and all that kind of stuff. And, the eyebrows move and the mouth move, but it's just a bunch of still images, right? But in the beginning of it, they kind of like do an animated version of the original opening, with the ship flying towards the camera. And the one that they originally did in 1966, I love that opening because it's crap. You know what I mean? But now in the new redo of the next or of the original series, they have the fancy CG rendered one, right? And it doesn't work as well. Yeah. My opinion. I gotta go on YouTube and see if there's somebody's got the original one there. You have it, don't you? Don't you have the original series somewhere?
Yeah, I have it on DVD. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, just throw one in one day and then watch the opening credits, right? And you'll see there's a scene where like the ship flies to the left and it flies to the right. And if you look at it frame by frame, it's like a blur, And it's like this weird looking shape. I used to watch that all the time, and my eye would catch the weird blur all the time. And now, to me, it seems wrong. Because what I'm saying is the minimal amount of effort works. It fools you. You don't really need like you look at the costumes that people do. I went and saw that Star Wars exhibit, which has never come to Toronto. It was in Seattle when I saw it, and like the Hoth, we call him the snowtrooper. He's wearing those white cotton work gloves that you get when you're like painting. They're just like crappy, like you get them at Canadian Tire. That's what the gloves were. Yeah. Or like an Alien where they're wearing hockey gloves as gloves, And I love the part where Dallas and the Doctor, or Dallas and the robot are what's the robot's name again? I forget. Anyway, the Ian Holm character. They're examining the alien, and they've got respirators on their faces, but there's no hose coming out of them, right? Like, in 1977, that worked. Like, nobody noticed. Yeah.
It really does make you appreciate how much attention to detail they put into these movies now.
Well, now it's like everything's rendered within an inch of its life. Like, they draw dust and dirt onto things, you know? Anyway, rant over. You got me started on the whole Lucas thing.
Well, what have we learned, Jaime? Never accused him of being George Lucas.
That was the hot button topic right there.
Yeah. Well, they call trompe l'oeil the painting where you paint wood grain or you paint leather or whatever. It's trick the eye. That's what trompe l'oeil translates to. right? So all you need to do is trick the eye for a split second, and no one's going to know. Unless somebody comes along and develops a technique or technology like DVD or Blu-ray, where people can watch things frame by frame and analyze it out of them. But in 1977, the only place you saw that was in a theater.
Oh,
right?
my very favorite one is the one from the James Bond movie where at one point he's having a fight in a dressing room with somebody, and he kicks the mirror, and the mirror pans, and you can see the entire film crew in the mirror. They for the new releases of it, they actually rendered it out so you don't see that. But man. God, that scene is just it's so bad. It's only on for like 2 frames, but it's like you see the cameraman, you see the director, you see like the boom guy.
Well, it's like the stormtroopers who bang their heads in the first movie. Oh yeah, right? Like he left that in. Yeah. He left that in. Yeah. What? Anyway,
oh George.
Yeah. Talk to you later.
All right, guys. See you next week.
Bye. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.